Every life contains a moment that no one posts online. No music, no filter, just a person alone with a thought that feels almost dangerous. One day I will stop existing, and the world will go on as if nothing happened. It can surface at strange times. Staring at the bathroom mirror before work, holding a coffee that has already gone cold, walking out of a funeral into the brightness of an ordinary afternoon. For a few seconds, the familiar world looks unfamiliar. Streets, cars, people, everything continues. Yet something inside you steps back and asks, what exactly am I in the middle of? Blaise Pascal looked at that question without blinking. He did not soften it. He did not offer comfort first and truth later. He wrote, "The eternal silence of these infinite spaces frightens me." He understood that between the nothingness before we arrive and the nothingness after we leave, there is a narrow, trembling interval we call a life. Most people spend decades avoiding that realization. They drown it in noise, in plans, in screens, in endless talk about things that do not matter. Pascal refused that escape. He treated it as a kind of cowardice, not because fear is wrong, but because using fear to hide from truth ruins the only chance we have to live honestly. This is the axis of our video. Not drama, not romantic fatalism. A sober fact: we are an accident between two eternal voids. The universe did not ask for us. Time did not open a reserved place for our name. We arrived, briefly disturb the surface of things, and then vanish while the world continues. The question is not whether this is pleasant. The question is, what follows if we accept this without flinching? From here, we move step by step. First, into the abyss that existed before you. Then, into the cosmos that will outlast you. Then, into the fear that shapes you, the consciousness that exposes you. And finally, the way you can live in a way that does not betray the short interval you were given. Before your first cry, before your first thought, before anyone ever wrote your name, there was nothing of you. Not a hidden soul waiting in a queue, not a ghost rehearsing lines before entering the stage, just absence. This is not poetic language, it is literal. If you look at photographs taken 10 years before you were born, there you are, nowhere. People laugh, travel, fight, fall in love, fail, succeed. Entire stories rise and fall without you. The world is already full, overflowing, complete in its own way. Pascal's genius was to force this fact into the center of the conversation. He saw how much human pride resists it. We like to think we were destined, that our existence carries some built-in necessity. Yet when you trace your family line back, the truth becomes brutal. One missed encounter between grandparents, one death in a war, one illness that took the wrong person too early, one migration that never happened, and your entire existence dissolves, not symbolically, but actually. Modern biology only sharpens this. You are the product of countless random genetic combinations, a different sperm cell, a slightly different timing of conception, and someone else stands where you are standing. Not a different version of you, a different person entirely. This is the first eternal void, the infinite stretch of time before your birth in which you did not exist, were not expected, and were not needed. Human cultures have always tried to soften this. The Greeks told stories of gods shaping humans with intention. Other traditions spoke of souls chosen before time. These narratives are not stupid. They are understandable. The raw truth is heavy. It feels almost offensive to the ego. But reality does not bend for our comfort. History did not pause for your arrival. Volcanoes erupted, empires rose and fell, languages evolved, oceans shifted, and not once did the universe stop to ask, is this compatible with the future existence of this particular individual? Every counter-argument collapses here. You cannot show a single moment in the past where the world waited for you before acting. No law of physics, no historical document, no cosmic rule indicates necessity. Accepting the abyss before you does not erase your value. It erases your illusion of being inevitable. You are not inevitable. You are improbable. And improbability is much more powerful than ego. It means every second you are alive sits on top of an astronomical chain of coincidences that could easily have gone another way. Think of it concretely. A grandmother almost died young and survived by minutes. A grandfather almost did not move to the city where he met her. A war almost claimed a relative whose survival allowed your bloodline to continue. None of them knew you. None of them were trying to create you. Yet their choices, accidents, and escapes from death built the bridge on which you now stand. Once this truth sinks in, something shifts. Entitlement becomes ridiculous. Arrogance looks comical. You stop acting like the world owes you something for existing, because you see how unlikely it is that you exist at all. And that prepares you for the second shock. The realization that the universe does not only precede you, it calmly outlives you. If every human vanished in a single instant, the sun would still rise tomorrow from the perspective of the Earth, and not a single star would flicker differently. The Andromeda Galaxy would continue its slow collision course toward the Milky Way. Black holes would keep swallowing light in distant regions no one has ever seen. Pascal wrote about man lost in a remote corner of nature, trapped between the infinite large and the infinite small. He did not have access to Hubble images, radio telescopes, or cosmic background radiation data. Yet his intuition matched what modern cosmology later confirmed. We occupy a microscopic fragment of a universe that is vast beyond imagination and almost entirely indifferent to us. The scale alone dismantles human vanity. One star among billions in a single galaxy. One galaxy among trillions. Our planet is a fleck of dust suspended in an incomprehensible space, and our individual lives are small pulses on that dust. People sometimes answer this with a sentimental protest. But humans have consciousness. That must make us cosmically special. The statement confuses two levels. Consciousness is extraordinary. It changes everything inside our experience. But it does not force the universe to care. A dying star does not alter its explosion because on a small planet far away, a human is writing a poem. A supermassive black hole does not reconsider its existence because someone down here believes in justice. Cosmic events unfold according to physical laws that operated long before humans and will continue long after. Another common attempt is to point to our impact on Earth. Cities, art, technology, environmental destruction. But the Earth is itself temporary. The sun will one day exhaust its fuel. Oceans will boil. The planet will become inhospitable. Everything we ever built will either fade, melt, or be swallowed. Our scale is local, our influence limited. This is not an argument against human value. It is a refusal to confuse human value with cosmic importance. The universe owes us nothing. It is not supposed to applaud our efforts. Once that illusion falls, the picture sharpens. Meaning is no longer a negotiation with the cosmos. It becomes something that must be crafted in full awareness of our smallness. There is a parent pacing in a hospital corridor right now, terrified of losing a child. In that exact moment, on some distant planet orbiting a distant star, chemical reactions continue with no regard for the scene. There is a person burying the love of their life, while a galaxy is quietly forming newborn stars that will outlive every name in the cemetery. Is this cruel? Only if we demand that the universe behave like a parent. Pascal refused that demand. He did not ask the cosmos for comfort. He asked humans to stop lying to themselves about their place in it. The opposition has nowhere to go here. The data is clear. The laws of physics are impartial. No measurement shows adjustment in the behavior of the universe based on the emotional states of humans. When you finally accept this, something paradoxical happens. You might expect despair. Instead, a new sense of freedom arrives. If the universe does not assign us meaning, then we are not bound by a script we did not write. We carry responsibility, not pre-written destiny. But this freedom is not calm at first. It produces fear, and that fear starts shaping everything, often in the background. A person receives a test result, and suddenly, the future they quietly assumed they had collapses into uncertainty. Another person watches someone they love take their last breath and feels the floor of reality break beneath them. After that, the old way of moving through life feels fake, too light, too distracted. Fear enters as a permanent resident, not always loud, sometimes just a low hum beneath every day. Pascal studied this with painful accuracy. He wrote that most human miseries come from the fact that we cannot sit alone in a room without turning to distractions. He used the word divertissement, diversion, the endless search for things that help us forget what we are. Look at ordinary life. Endless scrolling, constant noise in the background, overwork, compulsive socializing. It is all presented as entertainment, productivity, or connection. But in many cases, it is a strategy to avoid a specific moment, the silent confrontation with the reality of our finitude. Modern psychology backs this up. Experiments that remind people of death often cause an immediate spike in defensive behavior. Stronger clinging to beliefs, more aggression toward opposing views, more desperate alignment with groups. Confronting mortality threatens the story we tell ourselves, so the mind panics and tries to reinforce identity. Here is the key. This fear is not a defect. It is a sign that we are awake. A creature that does not understand its own finitude cannot fear it. An animal runs from danger, but it does not stay up at night thinking about the end of its story. Humans do. Some argue that since fear hurts, we should avoid deeper thought. Just live, they say. Do not overthink. But just live usually means stay numb. Avoidance does not cancel fear. It hides it until a crisis rips the cover off. Others claim that facing the void leads only to depression and paralysis. Yet people who have stood closest to death often describe the opposite. Survivors of accidents, serious illnesses, or near loss frequently say that their priorities became clearer. Trivial resentments melted. Time felt sharper, more sacred. Pascal understood that facing fear honestly can purify the way we live. It burns away illusions. It exposes what matters with ruthless precision. Fear stops being a monster and becomes a measurement tool. What you are willing to lose and what you refuse to betray. The alternative is permanent escape. Always louder music, more distractions, more denial. But that path has a silent cost. You pay for it with your depth. You remain alive in a biological sense, but asleep in a human sense. Once fear is seen for what it is, another question appears. What exactly is it in us that feels all this so intensely? That is where consciousness enters as the central character. There are small, almost private shocks that happen during normal days. A person is washing dishes and suddenly feels the strange clarity of, I am the one experiencing this moment. Not as a vague thought, but as a piercing awareness. Or they hear a sentence that cuts straight through their defenses, and their mind steps outside itself for a second and watches its own reaction. That is consciousness. Not just being awake, but being aware of yourself being aware. Pascal called humans a thinking reed to capture this paradox. In terms of physical strength, we lose to almost everything. A storm, a virus, a car, a fall, a bullet. Yet in terms of awareness, nothing we know surpasses us. We know that we will die. We know that others will die. We can reflect on that knowledge, fear it, seek to understand it, and in rare cases, even make peace with it. Neuroscience shows that the brain constantly predicts, evaluates, and reinterprets. Even at rest, there is a storm of activity. Thoughts resurface, regrets replay, hopes simulate possible futures. This restlessness is not an error. It is the mechanism that allows us to step back from instinct and ask, should I do this? What does this mean? Some claim consciousness is just a byproduct of evolution, a kind of glitch. But that position contradicts itself in practice. The person making that claim uses consciousness to build arguments, evaluate evidence, and decide what to value. You cannot call the very tool you rely on meaningless without undermining your own logic. Others say consciousness is unreliable because it can be biased, emotional, inconsistent. That criticism also misses the point. The value of consciousness is not in being perfect. It is in being capable of correction. A biased mind can, through reflection, identify its bias and adjust. A purely instinctive creature cannot. Emotion does not weaken consciousness. It enriches it, giving depth to our judgments. Consciousness is the only light strong enough to reveal both voids and still function. It can see the nothing before, the nothing after, and yet continue. It can witness fear without collapsing into it. It can look at the cosmic indifference surrounding us and say, this may not care about me, but I care about what I do inside it. Every attempt to belittle consciousness fails. Without it, there is no philosophy, no art, no ethics, no science, no conversation about meaning. Without it, pleasure and pain would pass like weather through a stone. There would be no story. Consciousness does something extraordinary. It takes a purely physical sequence and turns it into a narrative. The beating of a heart becomes love. The firing of neurons becomes memory. A fragment of time becomes a life. And once we understand that consciousness is our only light in the darkness of two voids, one last question becomes unavoidable. Given everything we know, how should we live? There is a day, sometimes quiet, sometimes violent, when a person understands that no one is coming to hand them a ready-made meaning. No philosophy, no religion, no relationship, no possession can do the work in their place. At best, they can offer tools. But the responsibility to live, truly live, remains inescapably personal. Pascal did not deny this weight. He leaned into it. He saw human beings as suspended between misery and greatness. Misery because we are fragile, finite, and often confused. Greatness because we are aware of all this and can still choose how to respond. Living between two voids is not about pretending the voids are not there. It is about choosing how to act, knowing that they are. Look at the lives that quietly impress you. Not the loud, performative ones, but the ones that leave a trace of respect when you think about them. Usually, they have certain things in common. They live with a sense of time. They know that every conversation could be the last, so they watch what they say. They know that grudges can outlive both people involved, so they let go when they can. They understand that attention is the real currency of existence, so they give it carefully, not to everything loud, but to what is truly important. They live with a sense of responsibility, not abstract guilt, but concrete ownership. They know that their choices shape not only their own life, but the inner lives of others. A parent's anger becomes a child's wound. A leader's cowardice becomes a group's disaster. A doctor's negligence becomes a stranger's final moment. They live with a sense of presence. Not shallow, live in the moment slogans, but a deep understanding that the moment is all we ever directly have. The past can be remembered, the future can be planned, but both are handled now. in this sliver of time where consciousness acts. Some claim none of this matters, because everything ends. Why care if nothing lasts? But that position contradicts how they themselves live. They still avoid pain, seek love, protect their children, pursue recognition. Their actions betray their theory. If nothing matters, why does anything hurt? The truth is simpler and more confrontational. Things matter precisely because they end. If you knew you could repeat this life infinitely, there would be no urgency, no real stakes. Finite time turns every choice into something that cannot be undone. That is what gives it weight. You are an accident between two eternal voids. You did not choose to start. You cannot avoid the end. But in between, you are not powerless. You can tell the truth when lying would be easier. You can forgive when revenge would be more satisfying. You can create beauty, protect the vulnerable, resist cruelty, and shape your character deliberately. Pascal's insight corners all opposing illusions. The universe does not revolve around you. Your existence was not guaranteed. There is no built-in script. You are not as important as your ego tells you, yet your choices are more serious than you ever thought. That is the paradox. You are small in scale, but immense in responsibility. The void before you proves you were not needed. The void after you proves you are not kept. But what you do while you are here, inside this trembling interval, is yours. No one and nothing can live it in your place. There is a quiet truth running beneath everything we have explored. A truth that sits in the center of every life, unnoticed until something forces it into sight. We rise from nothing. We move through a world that owes us nothing, and we disappear into nothing. Yet somehow, in that thin and improbable interval, we manage to create love, loyalty, memory, meaning, and stories that outlast us. That is the real defiance, not power, not certainty, but the courage to build significance in a universe that never promised us any. If you felt something awaken inside you while watching this video, even if it was just a flicker of recognition or a quiet moment of clarity, then this space we share is already serving its purpose. Every view, every minute you spend here, every comment that adds depth to the discussion supports this channel more than you realize. You are part of a community that thinks, questions, reflects, and refuses to live on autopilot. That alone means everything. But if you want to take an extra step, if you want to help sustain and expand this work, becoming a channel member makes a real difference. Members get early access to videos, exclusive posts, deeper conversations, and a closer connection to the ideas we build together here. It is a way of saying, this matters to me, and I want to keep it alive. And if membership is not possible for you, the Super Thanks button exists for a simple reason. It lets you show appreciation in a direct and meaningful way. Not out of obligation, not out of pressure, but as a gesture of support towards something that resonates with you. Even the smallest contribution helps the channel grow, reach more people, and keep producing content with honesty, depth, and courage. Still, let this be clear. You do not need to spend a cent to matter here. Watching, sharing, liking, and simply being part of this audience is already a gift. This channel stands because people like you choose to stay, to think, and to feel alongside these ideas. But if you feel this work deserves a little more, if it has made a difference in your day or in the way you see the world, consider joining as a member or sending a super thanks. Not just as support, but as a way of saying that the brief interval we share right now is worth something. Thank you for being here. You are part of this, and that in itself is extraordinary.